guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I am doing what I've titled my Ode to Libraries. Basically just kind of talk for a minute about how much I love libraries and then do a quick library haul, except that it's not going to be quick because there are a ton of books in front of me because I went a little wild over the past week or so. I will say that I have read and returned books since I first started checking them out, but then every time I returned books I kept checking out more because that's what I do when I'm on my bullshit. So yeah, I just love my local library and like everyone should support theirs if you have one, if you're lucky enough to have one. Also, I do want to shout out the library app that I use to check out audiobooks, which is Overdrive. You can also check out ebooks on there, which I do sometimes, but I usually use it to check out audiobooks. Mine has a really good selection. I think it definitely varies like by library, like how much money they decide to allot to like buy like digital editions of these books, so it can definitely vary. But yeah, I would highly suggest checking it out. I think I just recently listened to How I Resist by Maureen Johnson. That was actually edited by Maureen Johnson, and then it's a whole bunch of like interviews and then essays from other people. It was really, really good, and the audiobook's less than 4 hours long. So it's a really quick listen, but it was really enjoyable and kind of gave me a lot of hope about the state of American society nowadays. And then I partially listened to Jacobee by William Ritter. I ended up partially listening to this because I got towards the end of it and decided to just go ahead and pick up the book because I own it. I just had wanted to listen to it on audiobook. So I listened to like, I want to say like 6 out of 7 hours on Overdrive and then read the last hour's worth of the book of the actual book itself. So yeah, it's a really great resource. I would highly recommend checking it out if your library has that. But yeah, I guess I'm just gonna move on to the haul and kind of talk about all these books. I'm actually currently reading multiple of them for a couple of reasons that I will explain when I get to those books because they're all stacked together. So I'm just gonna move through all of these. They're not in any particular order or separated by any like genre or anything. If I know something about them, I'll talk about them, but a lot of times I just pick up library books because they'll look interesting, so I might just tell you why it looked interesting to me. The first book I have is called Watch Me Disappear by Janelle Brown, and all of these are gonna glare, I'm sorry. I picked this one up because my library had a display for strong female protagonists, and it was a bunch of books that I'd never really heard of, and this one sounds like it's kind of a mystery and also has a lot to do with like a really strong father-daughter relationship, which I don't really read that often. I think like this girl's mother disappears and they don't really know what happened to her, and then the daughter starts like during therapy starts like having visions or dreams of her mother still being alive, and so she starts like confiding in her dad about it, and I think they kind of try to investigate what really happened to the mother, and it just sounded really interesting to me, especially since I am really into mysteries recently. So I should preface the haul that there are quite a few mystery novels here. Then we have one of the few YA books. I do think I have more adult books than YA books in this haul, which is kind of out of the norm for me. But this is Hamilton and Peggy by L.M. Eliot. I've heard a lot about this one, and obviously I love Hamilton as much as the next person, so I wanted to go ahead and pick this up and read it because I haven't read any of the other Hamilton books that have recently come out, so I need to start somewhere. I'm pretty sure this one is YA as well. It is called Mad Miss Mimic by Sarah Hinstra. I have never heard of this one before I picked it up, but I picked it up because it's set in London in the 1800s, and it's about this girl who can't speak in her own voice without having a really bad stutter, but she can perfectly imitate other people's voices, which is, you know, people call her Mad Miss Mimic. And I think she gets like mixed up in like a gang or something. Yeah, like she's trying to like solve some sort of mystery or something. I don't know. And it's pretty short, so I thought it sounded pretty interesting and a lot of fun. Next one. This one is one that I'm not really sure why I picked it up. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna try to read it, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was one of the ones that I didn't end up finishing. It is Blood Defense by Marcia Clark. This is about a defense attorney who I think ends up finding out that her defendant is guilty, and then like her dealing with having to represent him, or maybe deciding not to represent him because, you know, he's a sociopath. Yeah, it's another kind of mystery book, but kind of from a different perspective. This is The Girl Who Was Supposed to Die by April Henry. I actually picked this up because it seemed super short, and then I started reading the first, I think I read like the first chapter. They are really short. It was like 3 pages. I think this book is less than, yeah, it's barely 200 pages. So I wanted to pick this up because I knew I was going to end up checking out more books, but I was trying to check out shorter books so that they'd be quicker reads for me. And this was definitely one of those. It is another mystery. It is YA. It's a thriller. I think the title's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, last 2 in this stack, and I believe this is one of the last YA/middle grade ones that I have, and that is Lumberjanes The Moon Is Up by Mariko Tamaki, illustrated by Brooklyn Allen. I picked this one up because I was actually turning in the first one of these when I was at the library this trip. This is the second novelizations for Lumberjanes, and I didn't expect to love the first one as much as I did, but I absolutely adored the first one, and I knew I'd seen this one at the library, so I decided to go and return the first one and check this one out. Of course, I ended up with like 3 other books that time, but these are so cute. I love them. The last of the first stack, one of 3. This is What She Knew by Gilly Macmillan. Once again, a mystery. Honestly, yeah, this is about a woman whose son goes missing while they're like out at a park, and she ends up eventually coming under suspicion for the disappearance, and it's all from her perspective, so I think it's her really trying to solve this mystery. It looks like it's also told in a mix of like prose, but then also like IMs and emails, which I always really enjoy mixing together those kind of formats. I think it's very interesting. So yeah, so it's all about like what she knew, like what, you know, what did she know about her son's disappearance and that kind of a thing. It's also set in Bristol, so I was really interested in reading more of these non-American mysteries. Also the differing perspective of it being from the mother's point of view rather than from like a detective's point of view. I thought that was really interesting. Then we have The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. I've heard a lot about this book and about Ruth Ware in general because I believe she had another book that dropped in like a finished edition at Book Expo this year, and I heard some people talking about that and then talking about this book because they really enjoyed it. I didn't really know that much about it, but I have seen the cover everywhere, so I decided to go ahead and pick this up since I was looking to read more mysteries. I think I also picked this up from the strong female protagonist shelf. I could be completely wrong, but I think I also picked it up from there. So yeah, I think this is set in a cruise. That's pretty interesting. One stack down. Unfortunately, I think that was the smallest stack. Alright, well, this book is so huge. This is another one that's like so daunting to me. It's so long. It is The Thousand Deaths of Arter Ben by Tyler Whitesides. Honestly, I picked this up because it looked like a big actually, I entirely picked this up because it said book 1 on this, and I've been looking to start some more big fantasy series, even though I haven't finished a lot of the ones that I'm currently reading. But yeah, I just wanted to pick this up because it seemed interesting. It's about like a thief, which I'm always a big fan of, and it just looked like a cool new fantasy to read. I have The Secret Sisters by Joy Calloway. This is about a young woman in Illinois in 1881. She's a sophomore in college, which is pretty out of the norm for that era. And she is also in like the physician's program, so she's going to medical school, which is super out of the norm. And she wants to start a women's fraternity to like help the college-going women find people to confide in and like friends when it's mostly men at this college. So yeah, this sounded really interesting to me. I always love these kind of narratives of like women finding themselves and, you know, being badass and shit like that. So yeah. I have Everything We Lost by Valerie Geary. This is about a woman whose brother goes missing and I think it's told from their dual perspective, so I'm not sure if it's told from his perspective like while he's missing, or if it's like he's talking like before he went missing and then she's talking like after. I really don't know. But mysteries. I'm pretty sure I've used that mystery explanation for like 95% of these books. Well, here's one that is not a mystery, although the back does say 4 friends, 20 years, 1 powerful secret. It is The Story of Our Lives by something Warner, Helen Warner. I picked this up because of the strong female friendships, and I just dropped a Metro card out of it. Yeah, they're friends from college. They meet up every year to go on vacation together, and I'm assuming that this year there's going to be some sort of conflict among them or some reason that we're hearing the story from that time. Or it may be told over all the 20 years. I really don't know. I just wanted cool female friendships. Alright, the last book in the second stack is Extreme Makeover by Dan Wells. Dan Wells wrote the YA Partials series, which I've never read, but have seen around a lot. To be completely honest, I picked this book up because the spine is really cool, and then when I picked it up and saw that the cover was also really cool, I really wanted to get it. But I picked this up beyond that because of the like tagline on the back of it, which says, a satirical sci-fi thriller about a health and beauty company that destroys the world. That sounded super interesting to me. It sounds kind of like in adult uglies, so I decided to grab it. Last stack. This is also the tallest stack, but it's okay. Almost done. We're so close. The first one that I have here is something that people have probably heard a lot of. That is Only Human by Sylvain Neuvel. I've heard so much about this over the past couple of months since whenever it came out, which I really don't know when that was. But yeah, I've heard a lot about this. It's sci-fi. I'm super into sci-fi. It's like aliens, question mark, robots, maybe something about conquering the world, I think. Yeah, I saw that this was the first one that started off my whole, like, this whole haul. I saw this and I was like, oh right, I love checking out books from the library. Let me do a lot of that. The next is the first book in another fantasy series. Thankfully this one is a lot shorter than the 10,000 Deaths of so-and-so. This is The Queen's Poisoner by Jeff Wheeler. It is the first book in the King Fountain series. This had a cool cover and it seemed like a shorter fantasy. That's the only explanation I have. We do have two more YA books here that I forgot about. The first one is Not If I Save You First by Ally Carter. Ally Carter is one of my favorite authors of all time. I love her so much. I've heard mixed things about this, but knowing how much I love her writing, I'm still very excited for this book. I'm actually going to do a whole review of the Gallagher Girls series sometime during this summer, like in August, or sometime before the end of this year. I'm going to reread and do a whole review on that series because I feel like not everybody's heard about it, and I would highly, highly recommend it because it was kind of, I have several series that for me that are like the level of Harry Potter and Percy Jackson. Like obviously I love those series and they're kind of like the standard, but I have several other series that are up there with them, and Gallagher Girls is one of them, so I want to talk about it on this channel to try to get more people to read it because it definitely deserves more attention than I think it gets. So yeah, I'm really excited to finally read this. We have the last mystery of the bunch, that is What Remains of Me by Allison Galen. This is about a girl who like publicly shoots a movie director, like at a party. She murders him and ends up going to jail for it for like 20 years, I want to say, like a long time. She gets out and then almost immediately after getting out is accused of another murder of a similarly like well-known famous person. There are a lot of people who end up defending her and saying that she didn't commit either crime, and I think this book is from her perspective, talking about being framed / maybe committing the murders. I really don't know what the actual case is, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. And then the last 3 books are the 3 books that I am currently reading. 2 of these I'm hoping to finish today or tomorrow, and one of them is a slog, so I'll talk about that. That's the last one that I'm going to talk about. The first one that I'm currently reading is Elite by Mercedes Lackey. This is the second book in the Hunter series, I believe it's called. Yeah. I read Hunter during Cramathon in June and really enjoyed it. I talked about it in my vlog. If you want to check that out, I'll link it down below. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a really unique kind of fantasy, but also like sci-fi technology book. It has to do a lot with like mythological creatures, but also has a lot of like higher tech. In that way, it kind of reminds me of the Hunger Games with its kind of like techie dystopian atmosphere, but it's also very fantastical with all of these creatures that they're dealing with. I would highly recommend reading Hunters. Once I finish this series, I think I'm planning on doing like a whole series review, but as this is the second one, I still have this one and then one more to go because it's a trilogy. I'm really enjoying this one so far. I'm almost 50 pages in, so I'll definitely be finishing this one pretty soon. Then I have Markswoman by Rati Mehrotra. I'm so butchering that. I'm so sorry. I had this one on one of my most anticipated lists of this year that I posted on the blog earlier on. I don't remember exactly what that post was, but I'm really excited to read this. It's about this like clan of markswomen who basically they bond with these blades that have these kind of like telepathic powers to communicate with them and give them like kind of telepathic powers, and basically becomes their responsibility to lay down the law in this kingdom that they live in. And there's all these like gods, and of course they're pledged to one goddess, and just kind of about her story among them and how her family was murdered and her desire to avenge them. So far I'm really enjoying it. I'm about 80 pages in and it's really, really good so far, so I'll also definitely be finishing this one very soon. And then finally is the aforementioned slog of a book. Not that I'm not enjoying it so far, but it's certainly a book. And that is Middlemarch by George Eliot. This is a huge classic. It's so long, guys. Why did I do this to myself? Middlemarch is, I believe, over 800 pages long. It's longer than that long fantasy book that I was holding up earlier, so that's a thing. It's also a classic, so I've been reading this book for like 3 days and I'm not 100 pages in yet. It's good. I am enjoying it. Like, I definitely am glad I decided to read it because it is the style of like, basically what Middlemarch is about. What I gather so far and what I've read in the synopsis is that Middlemarch is like third-person profile of this town in England. I think it's in England. Of this town where it just kind of like, it's separated out into 8 different books, so like every book is approximately 100 pages long. I think the first book is 120 pages long, and they each follow a different like person or business or something, where it's just like this whole like third person look at this town, like provincial town in England. So I'm really enjoying it so far. I also think that kind of changing perspective is really interesting, so I'm getting close to being done with the first book, and I'm excited to see like how the second book differs from the first one and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is just gonna take me a long time to get through. So I've taken to obviously reading other books along with this one. So that's it. There are so many of these, I'm not going to try to hold them all up. That would be ridiculous. But I do want to hear from y'all, like what do you think about your libraries? How often do you use them? Have you read any of these books? What did you think of them? All that kind of normal stuff. My links will all be in the description box down below, along with the link to the blog posts that I mentioned and the Cramathon vlog. Check me out at any of my social media. I'd love to talk to y'all, and I will see you next time. Bye!